Picture this. You wake up tomorrow, and suddenly all supermarkets have vanished. Your kitchen stands empty. No refrigerator, no stove, not even a microwave. The only tools at your disposal are crude stones and wooden sticks. How would you feed yourself? What would you eat? Take a moment to truly imagine it. The convenience of pre-packaged meals and frozen dinners is gone. No more quick trips to the grocery store. No more ordering takeout. Your survival now depends entirely on your ability to find, catch, and gather your own food using only the most primitive tools. Sounds terrifying, doesn't it? Yet this was the daily reality for our ancestors thousands of years ago. Every single meal required incredible skill, knowledge, and determination. They had to intimately understand their environment, which plants were edible, which were poisonous, how to track animals, and where to find clean water. But here's something that might surprise you. Many of the techniques they developed during those ancient times still influence how we prepare and preserve food today. The smoking of meat, fermentation of vegetables, and even the basic principle of cooking over an open flame. All these methods were pioneered by our prehistoric ancestors. And here's an even more astonishing fact. Studies suggest that our ancestors actually enjoyed a more diverse diet than many modern humans. While we often limit ourselves to the same few meals rotated throughout the week, they consumed a wide variety of seasonal plants, fruits, nuts, and meats, sometimes up to hundreds of different food sources throughout the year. Their diet wasn't just diverse, it was incredibly nutritious. They didn't have processed foods, refined sugars, or artificial preservatives. Everything they ate came directly from nature, in its purest form. In many ways, they were the original whole food enthusiasts, though not by choice but by necessity. Before we dive deeper into the fascinating secrets of prehistoric nutrition, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to The Dawn of Humankind. Click the notification bell to join us on more incredible journeys into humanity's past. Trust me, what you're about to learn about our ancestors' eating habits will completely change how you think about your next meal. The story of human food begins around 2.5 million years ago, when our earliest ancestors first walked the earth. During those primitive times, survival meant being constantly on the move, following the rhythms of nature and the migrations of animals. Our ancestors weren't just surviving, they were mastering the art of finding food in ways we can barely imagine today. Picture this, small groups of humans, moving through vast landscapes, reading the signs of nature like we read books today. They could tell which berries were safe just by their smell, which plants would heal their wounds, and which mushrooms could mean certain death. These weren't simple skills, they were sophisticated survival techniques passed down through generations. The real magic happened around 300,000 years ago when modern humans emerged. They developed incredible hunting strategies that would amaze us today. They could track animals for days, understanding every footprint, every broken twig, every sign that told them where their prey was heading. They weren't just random wanderers. They were master strategists who could coordinate group hunts that would bring down animals much larger and stronger than themselves. But the most fascinating part of this story isn't just about hunting. It's about how these brilliant minds started noticing patterns. They began to understand that seeds dropped near their camps would sprout into new plants. They observed how certain animals could be approached, even befriended. This wasn't just luck. It was the beginning of a revolution that would change humanity forever. Around 12,000 years ago, something extraordinary started happening in different parts of the world. Some groups of hunter-gatherers began to settle down. They started experimenting with planting seeds and caring for young animals. This wasn't an overnight change. It took thousands of years. But gradually, these experiments led to the first farms, the first villages, and eventually the first civilizations. Think about what this meant. For the first time in human history, people could produce their own food rather than just finding it. They could store grain for the winter, breed animals for specific traits, and create new varieties of plants that were bigger, tastier, and more nutritious than their wild relatives. This wasn't just a change in diet, it was a complete transformation of human society. The transition from hunting and gathering to farming wasn't simple or easy. It required new tools, new skills, and entirely new ways of thinking about food. Our ancestors had to learn about seasons, soil types, weather patterns, and animal behavior in ways they never needed to before. They had to develop new technologies for storing food, new methods for processing grain, and new techniques for preserving meat and vegetables. This revolutionary change from foraging to farming set the stage for everything we know today. It allowed populations to grow, cities to develop, and civilizations to flourish. It's a testament to human ingenuity and adaptability, showing how our ancestors transformed from wandering hunters into sophisticated farmers who could control their own food supply. Every time we sit down to eat today, we're experiencing the end result of this epic journey, a journey that started with simple stone tools and led to the complex food systems we have now. It's a story of human innovation, determination, and the incredible ability to adapt and survive against all odds. Let me take you back 20,000 years to meet the remarkable people who mastered survival in a world we can barely imagine today. Meet Luna, a young gatherer in her late teens. Her knowledge of the natural world would put our modern botanists to shame. From her earliest memories, she learned from her mother and grandmother about every plant within a day's walk from their camp. She can identify over 300 different plants just by their leaves, and knows exactly which parts are edible, medicinal, or deadly poisonous. Luna starts her day before dawn, carrying a woven basket and a digging stick made from fire-hardened wood. She knows that certain roots are sweetest when dug up in the early morning, and specific berries must be picked before the sun makes them too soft. Her fingers are calloused from years of digging tubers, and her eyes are sharp enough to spot tiny edible mushrooms from yards away. But Luna isn't just collecting food randomly. She understands the complex cycles of nature, like we understand the hours in a day. She knows that when certain flowers bloom, it means specific root vegetables are ready to harvest. When particular birds return, it signals that specific fruit trees will soon bear their bounty. This isn't just knowledge, it's a sophisticated calendar written in the language of nature. Working alongside Luna is a hunting party led by an experienced hunter named Koda. He and his group have spent years perfecting their hunting techniques, passing down knowledge that goes back countless generations. They can read animal tracks like we read road signs, understanding not just what animal passed by, but how long ago, whether it was injured, and even if it was carrying young. The hunters used tools that took generations to perfect. Their spears are masterpieces of engineering for their time. Wooden shafts straightened by fire, tips crafted from carefully knapped flint, all balanced perfectly for both throwing and thrusting. They've learned to imitate animal calls so convincingly that they can lure prey closer or communicate with each other without alerting their quarry. Watch as Koda's group plans their hunt. They don't just chase after any animal they see. Instead, they study the herd dynamics of the deer, knowing which animals to target to ensure the herd's survival for future hunts. They understand wind direction, animal behavior, and the best places to set up an ambush. Some hunters will act as drivers, carefully herding the deer toward others waiting in strategic positions. Then there's old Mara, the keeper of medicinal knowledge. She knows which plants can stop bleeding, which can reduce fever, and which can ease the pain of childbirth. Her knowledge goes beyond just healing. She understands how to preserve meat using smoke and specific plants, how to treat animal hides to make them into clothing, and how to store foods for the harsh winter months. The children of the group are constantly learning, playing games that teach them vital skills. Young girls practice identifying plants using small collections of leaves and berries, while boys learn to track small animals and throw spears at moving targets. But this isn't a rigid division. Everyone learns basic survival skills regardless of gender. These aren't simple prehistoric people stumbling through survival. They are sophisticated individuals with deep understanding of their environment, expert knowledge of animal behavior, and incredible problem-solving skills. Their technology might seem primitive to us, but their knowledge of the natural world was far more extensive than most of us possess today. Every member of the group plays a vital role in survival. While the hunters might bring in large game, it's often the gatherers who provide the majority of the group's daily food. The success of these ancient communities didn't just rely on strength or speed. It depended on cooperation, shared knowledge, and a deep understanding of the natural world that we've largely lost today. Let's explore the incredible technological breakthroughs that revolutionized prehistoric food acquisition and preparation. The mastery of fire, dating back roughly 1.5 million years ago, stands as humanity's first and perhaps most revolutionary technological achievement. But creating fire was just the beginning. Our ancestors had to learn to control it, maintain it, and most importantly, understand how it could transform food. This wasn't just about making food taste better. It was a complete revolution in human evolution. When early humans began cooking food, something remarkable happened. Cooking broke down tough plant fibers and meat proteins, making them easier to digest. This meant our ancestors could extract more calories and nutrients from the same amount of food. But here's the fascinating part. This efficient digestion meant our bodies needed less energy for digestion, redirecting that precious energy to fuel our growing brains. The development of tools tells an equally captivating story. Around 3.3 million years ago, our ancestors began crafting the first stone tools. These weren't just randomly broken rocks, they were carefully crafted implements. The Oldowan tools, as archaeologists call them, were simple but effective cutting tools made by striking one stone against another to create sharp edges. But the real technological leap came with the invention of composite tools. Imagine the moment when someone first had the brilliant idea to attach a sharpened stone to a wooden handle. This wasn't just combining two materials, it was the birth of mechanical advantage. These early spears dramatically increased throwing distance and power, giving our ancestors a crucial advantage in hunting. As time progressed, tool technology became increasingly sophisticated. The invention of the spear thrower, or atlatl, around 30,000 years ago, was a genuine game changer. This clever device effectively extended the human arm, allowing hunters to throw spears much farther and with greater force. A well-trained hunter, using an atlatl, could launch a spear over 100 meters with enough force to bring down large prey. The development of the bow and arrow, roughly 64,000 years ago, represented another quantum leap in hunting technology. This was arguably the most sophisticated weapon humans had created until the invention of gunpowder. It required understanding complex principles of physics, materials science, and engineering, all without any formal knowledge of these concepts. But hunting wasn't just about weapons. Our ancestors developed ingenious trapping technologies. They created pit traps, deadfall traps, and snares, each designed for specific types of prey. These passive hunting methods allowed them to hunt while gathering or working on other tasks. Food processing technology evolved alongside hunting tools. Stone mortars and pestles appeared around 30,000 years ago, allowing people to grind seeds and nuts into flour. This seemingly simple innovation opened up an entirely new category of foods and laid the groundwork for future agricultural processing. Storage technology was another crucial development. Our ancestors learned to dry meat and fish, preserve fruits and berries, and create underground storage pits that could keep food fresh for months. They discovered that certain clay vessels could preserve food better than others, leading to the development of pottery around 20,000 years ago. The invention of watertight containers was revolutionary. Whether made from tightly woven baskets sealed with tree resin or carved from wood, these containers allowed for new cooking methods like boiling, which made tough foods edible and toxic plants safe to eat. One of the most overlooked but crucial technologies was the development of cordage, the ability to make string and rope from plant fibers. This technology made possible everything from better hunting tools to fishing nets to carrying containers for gathered foods. These technological advances weren't just isolated inventions. Each breakthrough built upon previous ones, creating a cascade of innovation that ultimately led to the agricultural revolution. The same skills used to craft hunting tools would later be essential for creating farming implements. The knowledge of food preservation would become crucial for storing harvested crops. What's truly remarkable is that many of these technologies were invented independently in different parts of the world, showing how human ingenuity follows similar paths when faced with similar challenges. Each of these innovations represents not just a new tool, but a new way of thinking about how to interact with and manipulate the environment for survival. So what do you think was the most impressive prehistoric technology? Was it the mastery of fire, the invention of the bow and arrow, or perhaps the development of food preservation techniques? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the Dawn of Humankind channel. Let me take you through the immense challenges our ancestors faced and how these hardships shaped human innovation. Imagine surviving during the last glacial maximum, around 20,000 years ago. The world was a dramatically different place. Temperatures were up to 15 degrees Celsius colder than today, and massive ice sheets covered much of North America and Europe. This wasn't just a cold spell. It was a profound challenge to human survival that lasted for thousands of years. During these harsh times, familiar food sources simply vanished. Plant species that had been reliable food sources for generations either died out in certain regions or retreated to warmer areas. Animals that humans had hunted for millennia either went extinct or migrated to new territories. Imagine the desperation of watching your known food sources literally disappear before your eyes. The challenges were immense. In winter, daylight lasted only a few hours in many regions, limiting the time available for hunting and gathering. The frozen ground made it impossible to dig for roots and tubers, traditionally a reliable food source. Snow and ice made tracking animals more difficult, and the extreme cold meant that hunters could only stay out for short periods. But these harsh conditions forced our ancestors to develop remarkable survival strategies. They learned to predict weather patterns by observing subtle changes in animal behavior and cloud formations. They discovered that certain plants, like pine trees, held edible inner bark that could sustain them when other food sources were scarce. They developed new hunting techniques specifically adapted to snow and ice conditions. Food preservation became crucial for survival. They couldn't just live day to day anymore. They had to think months ahead. They developed sophisticated techniques for drying meat and fish, creating emergency food stores that could last through the worst of winter. They learned to smoke food, not just for preservation, but also to add calories through the absorbed fats from the smoke. The scarcity of plant foods led to incredible innovations. People began to process foods they would normally ignore. They learned to leach toxins from certain plants, making previously inedible vegetation safe to eat. They discovered that grinding tough seeds and nuts not only made them more digestible, but also created flour that could be stored for long periods. One of the most fascinating adaptations was the development of social networks. Different groups began to trade food resources across vast distances. Archaeological evidence shows that seafood was being transported hundreds of miles inland, while inland resources were making their way to coastal communities. This wasn't just commerce. It was a survival strategy that created resilience through diversity. But perhaps the most significant observation came from these periods of extreme scarcity. As people became more desperate for food sources, they began to pay closer attention to how plants grew. They noticed that seeds dropped near their camps would sprout into new plants the following season. They observed how certain areas seemed to produce more abundant plant growth than others. This heightened awareness of plant life cycles, born from necessity, led to the first experiments with intentional planting. It wasn't farming as we know it, not yet. But it was the crucial first step toward understanding that humans could influence and control their food supply rather than simply finding it. The Ice Ages also taught our ancestors about the importance of location. They learned to establish camps in areas that offered multiple food sources and natural shelter. They began to understand microclimates, how certain valleys or hillsides might support plant life even when surrounding areas were barren. Water management became another crucial skill. During freezing conditions, finding liquid water could be as challenging as finding food. People learned to anticipate where ice would melt first in spring and how to extract water from other sources, including snow and plants. These challenges also led to technological innovations in clothing and shelter. Without adequate protection from the cold, no amount of food would ensure survival. The development of better clothing and shelters allowed people to stay warm while using less energy, making their food supplies last longer. The most remarkable aspect of these challenges is how they spurred human ingenuity. Every hardship became a catalyst for innovation. The scarcity of familiar foods led people to experiment with new food sources. The need to preserve food drove the development of new technologies. The harsh conditions forced people to cooperate in new ways. In many ways, we owe our current agricultural knowledge to these periods of extreme hardship. It was during these times of scarcity that humans began to truly understand the relationship between seeds, soil, and food production. The first steps toward agriculture weren't taken in times of plenty. They were born from necessity during humanity's darkest hours. These challenges didn't just test human survival skills. They shaped the very way we think about food, community, and survival. The innovations born from these hardships continue to influence how we produce and preserve food today. These ancient struggles for survival shaped who we are today. Every time we store food for winter or plant a garden, we're building on the knowledge our ancestors gained through their battles with extreme climate conditions and food scarcity. The transition from hunter-gatherer to farmer wasn't just a change in how we obtained food. It was a fundamental transformation that forever altered our relationship with the earth and our understanding of sustenance. Looking back at this pivotal moment in human history offers us profound insights into our present challenges. Our ancestors faced a world of constant change. When the climate shifted dramatically at the end of the last ice age, they had to adapt or perish. They responded by developing agriculture, perhaps the most revolutionary innovation in human history. This transition teaches us that humans have an incredible capacity for adaptation and innovation when faced with environmental challenges. Today, we face our own set of unprecedented challenges. Climate change threatens crop yields worldwide. Growing populations demand ever-increasing food production. Soil degradation and water scarcity pose serious threats to agricultural sustainability. These modern challenges mirror, in many ways, the environmental pressures our ancestors faced. What's fascinating is how many ancient solutions are becoming relevant again. Our ancestors understood the importance of crop diversity, practicing what we now call polyculture. They knew that growing different crops together could protect against total crop failure and maintain soil health. Today's agricultural scientists are rediscovering these principles, implementing them on a larger scale. The ancient practice of seed saving and selective breeding, which gave us most of our modern crops, holds valuable lessons for maintaining genetic diversity in our food supply. Our ancestors carefully selected and preserved seeds from their best plants, gradually developing more productive and resilient crops. This same principle guides modern seed banks and genetic preservation efforts. Consider water management. Ancient civilizations developed sophisticated irrigation systems that worked with natural water cycles. They understood that sustainable agriculture meant working with nature, not against it. These lessons are increasingly relevant as we face growing water scarcity and the need for efficient irrigation systems. Our ancestors' waste not want not approach to food use offers important insights for our modern struggle with food waste. They developed countless preservation techniques and used every part of both plants and animals. In our era of excessive food waste, these practices remind us of the value and finite nature of our food resources. Perhaps most importantly, our ancestors understood something we're only now rediscovering: the intimate connection between food production and environmental stewardship. They knew their survival depended on maintaining a balanced relationship with their environment. This wisdom is crucial as we grapple with sustainable food production in the face of climate change. The shift to agriculture also teaches us about the unintended consequences of major food system changes. While farming allowed for larger populations and the development of civilizations, it also led to new health challenges, social inequalities, and environmental impacts. As we develop new agricultural technologies today, we must carefully consider their long-term implications. Our prehistoric ancestors' experience shows us that successful adaptation requires both innovation and respect for natural systems. They developed new tools and techniques while maintaining a deep understanding of ecological relationships. This balanced approach is exactly what we need as we develop sustainable solutions for modern food production. Looking back at our ancestors' journey from hunting and gathering to farming reminds us that major transitions in food systems are possible and sometimes necessary. But it also teaches us that successful changes must be built on a foundation of environmental understanding and respect for natural systems. The challenges we face today may seem unprecedented, but our ancestors' experiences offer valuable guidance. Their story teaches us that sustainability isn't just about maintaining current systems. It's about being willing to fundamentally rethink our relationship with food and the environment when circumstances demand it. Just as our ancestors rose to meet their challenges through innovation and adaptation, we too must find new ways to produce food sustainably. Their legacy reminds us that human ingenuity, combined with respect for natural systems, can help us overcome even the most daunting challenges in food production. The foods sitting on your plate have an incredible prehistoric story to tell. Take corn, for instance, one of humanity's most remarkable achievements in selective breeding. The corn we eat today began its journey around 10,000 years ago in Mexico's tropical valleys as a wild grass called teosinte. This ancient plant bore little resemblance to modern corn. Its ears were barely an inch long, with only 5 to 10 hard kernels that would probably crack your teeth if you tried to eat them. Through thousands of years of careful selection by ancient farmers, this humble grass underwent a dramatic transformation. Generation after generation, these early agriculturalists selected plants with larger ears, softer kernels, and more rows of grain. They didn't know about genes or DNA, but they understood that plants passed their traits to their offspring. This patient work of countless generations resulted in the large, sweet corn we enjoy today. Potatoes tell an equally fascinating story. High in the Andes Mountains, Ancient peoples domesticated wild potatoes that were no bigger than marbles and often toxic. Through careful breeding, they created thousands of varieties adapted to different altitudes and growing conditions. These ancient farmers even developed techniques to remove toxins from potatoes by freezing them overnight and trampling them the next day, a process still used in parts of South America. Tomatoes, which are now essential to cuisines worldwide, started as small, cherry-sized fruits in South America. Ancient peoples selectively bred them for size and flavor, though for centuries after their domestication, many cultures believed them to be poisonous. They weren't entirely wrong. Tomatoes belong to the nightshade family, and their leaves are indeed toxic. Wheat has an even older story. Its domestication began over 12,000 years ago in the Fertile Crescent. Wild wheat would scatter its seeds at the slightest breeze, a great survival strategy for the plant but terrible for farmers. Ancient farmers selected plants that held onto their seeds longer, eventually creating wheat that stayed on the stem until harvest time. This simple selection changed the course of human history, making large-scale grain farming possible. Bananas were once virtually inedible, filled with hard seeds and containing very little flesh. Ancient farmers in Southeast Asia domesticated them over thousands of years, selecting variants with more flesh and fewer seeds. The bananas we eat today are actually genetic mutants. They're sterile and can only be propagated through cuttings. Carrots were originally purple or white and quite bitter. The orange carrots we know today were developed in the Netherlands during the 17th century, but their domestication began much earlier in Central Asia. Ancient peoples selected them for their enlarged, more palatable roots and sweeter taste. Apples represent one of the most diverse domestication stories. The wild ancestors of our modern apples still grow in the mountains of Central Asia, producing small, tart fruits. Through selective breeding and grafting, ancient farmers developed thousands of varieties with different tastes, textures, and storage properties. Watermelon started as bitter, hard fruits in Africa's Kalahari Desert. Ancient Egyptian farmers transformed them into the sweet, juicy fruits we know today. Tomb paintings show watermelons on offering tables, suggesting they were already cultivated over 4,000 years ago. And here's a surprising fact about ancient beverages. The art of fermentation goes back much further than you might think. Archaeological evidence suggests that humans were making fermented beverages from rice, honey, and fruits as far back as 13,000 years ago. Early farmers quickly learned that fermentation could not only preserve food, but also create entirely new products with unique properties. These ancient achievements in plant breeding laid the groundwork for modern agriculture and continue to influence how we develop new crop varieties today. Every time you bite into an apple, slice a tomato, or enjoy an ear of corn, you're tasting the results of thousands of years of careful selection by our prehistoric ancestors. Their patient work transformed wild plants into the foods that now feed billions of people worldwide. As we reach the end of our extraordinary journey through prehistoric food, let's take a moment to reflect on the profound legacy that shapes every meal we eat today. The next time you open your refrigerator, pause for a moment and consider this. Every single item inside tells a story spanning thousands of years of human evolution and discovery. That simple apple in your fruit drawer, it carries within it the accumulated knowledge of countless generations who carefully selected and bred wild fruits into the sweet, crisp varieties we enjoy today. The grains in your bread, they represent one of humanity's greatest achievements, the transformation of wild grasses into stable food sources that could feed entire civilizations. We are the heirs to an incredible ancestral knowledge that has enabled humanity not just to survive, but to thrive and reach where we are today. Every cooking technique we use, every preservation method we employ, every farming practice we follow, all these are built upon the foundation laid by our prehistoric ancestors. The human food journey shows us something remarkable. Necessity and creativity have always walked hand in hand, transforming challenges into opportunities for evolution. When our ancestors faced harsh climates, they didn't just survive, they innovated. When food sources became scarce, they didn't just adapt, they revolutionized their entire way of life. This legacy continues today. As we face modern challenges in food production and sustainability, we're drawing upon the same wellspring of human ingenuity that helped our ancestors transition from hunters to farmers. The solutions to our current food challenges may well lie in combining our ancestors' wisdom with modern innovation. Remember, every meal you eat is not just sustenance, it's a connection to this grand human story. You are part of an unbroken chain of human innovation and adaptation that stretches back millions of years. Every time you prepare food, you're participating in a tradition as old as humanity itself. Before we end this journey through prehistoric gastronomy, I have an invitation for you. If you've enjoyed exploring this fascinating aspect of human history, there's so much more to discover. Help us continue sharing these incredible stories about human history by hitting that like button right now. Share this video with friends and family who might be fascinated by how our ancestors lived and ate. Every share helps spread this knowledge and keeps these important stories alive. Subscribe to our channel and become part of our community of history enthusiasts. We're constantly exploring fascinating aspects of human history, and we'd love to have you join us on these journeys of discovery. And don't forget to turn on notifications by clicking that bell icon. This way, you won't miss any episodes about humanity's fascinating history. Whether we're exploring ancient civilizations, prehistoric innovations, or the evolution of human society, you'll be the first to know. Thank you for joining me on this incredible journey through prehistoric food. Until our next historical adventure, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep asking questions about our remarkable past.